We're not doing an intro today.
Oh, please understand.
Save, you can save.
Hey guys, we're back. Beau Oliver, Aaron the Nerd Suit Monkey, to review The Last of Us Episode 4, Please Hold to My Hand, directed by Jeremy Webb and written by Craig Mazin. I was a little shocked by my personal reaction to this episode. Normally, you would think on paper Episode 3 would be the momentum killer because they took time to develop these two characters that aren't going to appear in the show again, but we thought that it was a big success, both of us here. Not Teddy, but the internet let him have it, the comment section. So the comments on our last videos normally get like 150 to 200. Within the first 8 hours, it was like 250. So that was fun for him.
Yeah. It's that meme. I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting cooked right now.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm getting cooked.
That man was getting fucking like a rotisserie chicken. But it ended up Episode 4, an episode that I was really excited about because of the preview and because of where it aligned with the game, that it was going to be a high-octane, action-packed, not all action, obviously. When I saw that 45-minute runtime, though, I thought, man, this is going to be like a shot of adrenaline. And it really wasn't. And that's why I mentioned momentum killer. To me, this felt that way because of the pacing of the first 3 episodes was so clean. And the story and the world felt so authentic. This is the one time where the story sort of took me out of it, where I was very aware that actors were acting like characters, where they were intentionally trying to develop certain parts of these relationships and certain aspects of the world. So to me, it's more of a mixed bag, which I was totally unexpecting, especially with all the reviews going into the first season as a whole. So I don't know, how did you feel about this episode, Aaron?
It's definitely the weakest of the 4 so far. I thought there were some good things, some bad things. Not necessarily bad, but just some things that I think weren't as good as the quality we've seen in the previous 3 episodes. I did enjoy everything with Joel and Ellie. I think we really see their relationship starting to form here, and just little things like stupid puns and smiles and, you know, that scene when they're laughing at the end. I really thought that really wrapped what they were trying to get across that episode very well. You had the scene in the car right from the games, the porno mag scene, word for word, beat for beat. I thought that was really good. But when they get into the town in Kansas City, you know, it was a fine action sequence, nothing too crazy, but that like rogue group, the resistance, they took over the QZ from the Fedra agents that were there and are running the show themselves now. I think everything with that was kind of felt out of place. I don't hate the idea, but I think more specifically the leader of that group didn't really feel like a leader of this resistance group in this type of environment.
Yeah, that character, Kathleen, was played by Melanie Linsky.
Yeah.
She's had a long career, obviously. But I think when she's delivering the speech when she's telling her people to track down the killers, track down Joel, that did not land whatsoever. That wasn't convincing. And it is funny because they discussed at the end of the episode that they wanted to make these characters more 3-dimensional. But I think that approach actually made them more 2-dimensional. It feels very surface level. You're very aware of the themes and ideas that they want to tackle here. The resistance group that rises up and becomes worse than the group that they overthrew. You're basically becoming your enemy and exploring the good and the bad and the gray, the complexity of how that group would operate. But not to be this person that's going to compare it to the games, but in the games, they are just a brick wall of ruthless opposition. They are an obstacle of carnage that you have to overcome, that Joel and Ellie have to overcome time and time again. And that was always one of the great selling points of the game, is telling people, hey, it's not just the zombies that you have to fear, but the humans are worse. And you're seeing the capacity that human beings have for violence when they are desperate, when their backs are pushed up against the wall. To me, that hammers the point home even harder, because you know these characters are humans and they still have their wits about them. They haven't been affected. They're not being controlled by anything other than their own human instincts. And you see how far people can fall, where they lose touch of their humanity because they're so desperate to survive or whatever it is. But to me, I didn't fear them. I didn't really empathize with the complexity of that group. So I think opening up the world and giving us this new look at these characters it sort of hurts the theme that they're trying to develop because it wasn't convincing, because they lost some of that realism through the performances and through the writing here. A lot of it just fell flat to me. It wasn't as strong as some of these other characters. That's where I brought up momentum killer, because now these are characters we're going to have to see again in episode 5, and maybe they will be a bit better. Maybe the performances will be stronger and the writing will be more convincing. But like I said, it just feels like we're being sidetracked. And in episode 3, I didn't mind it because it was so well done and well written, tackling some themes that you normally don't see in a show like this. But here, it definitely has to improve for me in episode 5. Well, it has to just be more convincing. And the show has been done such a good job of grounding us in this reality. To me, we sort of lost that here.
Yeah, and I think it was either Mason or Druckmann said that like this character embodies, he was explaining earlier with the resistance taking over the regime and becoming that regime, and this character embodies that. And I was like, nah, that didn't really work for me there. I think her actions, obviously killing the doctor, she's...
You saw it from a mile away. Yeah. There was no palpable tension whatsoever.
It's through the action rather than the character itself that you get those themes reflected upon that group. But because everything else, like you said, the speech fell flat, and even... you're right, I wasn't... Obviously, our characters, Joel and Ellie, are in a bit of a pickle here, but even the kids that were... Or the kid who was trying to kill Joel... And he's like, no, Mom, no. Like, I felt like that was just kind of landed flat for me.
See, I think that could have been more effective if the action was shot more interestingly. Because the way Joel takes down the raiders, hiding behind the car, goes to shoot, takes him out. There was nothing interesting about the framing, about the way those characters died. The violence, to me, just wasn't appealing in a way that makes you scared in the moment. Because, you're on episode 4. Joel and Ellie aren't dying here. But you have to fool the audience into thinking they're in real, palpable danger, and I never felt that. At sometimes I did. I like the way they, you didn't see what Joel was doing, you just heard it. Some of those loud shots from Ellie's perspective, that was done well. But I think the kid crying out for his mom, because you see it in war movies all the time, that always hits home, but here it didn't, which is surprising. That's like going to the old bag of tricks there. But it didn't work. I think that sequence was missing an intensity that really would have elevated those final moments for that character. If it's you're lost in the chaos, who's going to live, who's going to die, how are they going to die? And then all of a sudden, this character you were rooting against is crying out for his mom. It reminds you, oh yeah, he is a human. This is an actual person with his own story, with his own past. But it's like they were just so desperate to get to that point, and they forgot to dress it up in something that's visually appealing and fun for the audience to watch.
I thought the car sequence was done well.
When they do crash?
Yeah.
Yeah, the crash, you really felt that crash.
Yeah, but but certain things I do like about that sequence. Obviously what it means for Ellie and her having to use violence to save Joel. And then we learn it's not the first time she's been in a position like that or had to use violence. And the way that affects Joel, like he just keeps going back to she's just a kid and she shouldn't have to be witnessing and experiencing this type of life. But...
it was sad there how, and then he resigns to the fact that she's got no choice. So I'm going to show her how to hold the gun. And it's funny because that's supposed to be a sweet moment, right? They're bonding about how to shoot a gun. But then you realize, wait, he's teaching a 14-year-old kid how to shoot a fucking gun. This is sick. This is terrible for Ellie's future.
It's the times, man.
No, it is the times. And it's just inevitable that you have to learn these sort of things. And it's tragic for Joel because he's already at that stage where he's had to use violence so much in order to survive, and he sees in Ellie where he was at that point. Obviously, she's a bit younger, but that eventually she's going to grow and develop into what he is. They talked about this at the end of the episode when she goes back to hide behind the wall and she wipes away her tears. You have to process very quickly. You have to move on to the next thing. That's what's also tragic about this story. But yeah, for the most part, that stuff with the way they've been developing Ellie's character to me has been very strong. Like the opening scene when she's just in the gas station by herself and fiddling with the gun. You could just see that flicker in her eyes that she's ready for violence. She just needs that little push, and we saw it in this episode. But that stuff has been very fascinating to me from a character perspective.
Yeah, and you definitely see, obviously, at the end, Joel starting to entertain Ellie a little. Like, he doesn't view her, and I think that was the main thing they were trying to get across this episode of their relationship, that she goes to cargo to something else. And I think it was sweet, definitely Joel's reaction to the joke and him laughing. We haven't really seen him smile much since we've been introduced to this character. The past however many years have probably just been hell for him, and we get some insight into what that journey was like, being with Tommy, being with Marlene, and this group trying to do whatever they can to survive, and that means potentially killing innocents or doing things that he's probably not proud of. That's just the situation he's in right now, and the world around him has been so shitty that, you know, in order to survive, these are the things you have to do. And I think that just lends to the hesitancy to give Ellie a gun or have her experience these things, go behind the walls, because he doesn't want her to be shown this side of humanity yet this early in her life, but there's really no escaping it at this point.
Right, yeah, he's trying to protect her from these things, but he realizes, like you just said, there is no escaping it, so you may as well be prepared. And those moments of levity were sweet. They've dived into that a bit more quickly than the games. I don't think Joel ever laughs in the games. At times, I was wincing at some of their back and forths, almost cringing, because I thought that it was a bit too heavy-handed, and for the most part, over these first 4 episodes, they didn't have that problem. Well, over the first 3, where I thought the way their relationship was unfolding was very natural, similar to the games. But here, I thought that they, like I said, it was a bit too heavy-handed. They were really embracing the joke book, which does come from the game. So
I thought it was a generally funny pun. I didn't know where she was going with that one.
Did you really?
That was a good pun.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was funny when Joel answers the Scarecrow one.
Yeah.
That was clever. Establishing the camaraderie between the two of them, for me, wasn't as effective as the scenes of him showing her how to survive.
Yeah.
And them dealing with the reality of this world, the violence, and the carnage that they're going to see. So, yeah, that's where I found the episode to be a bit uneven, where some of it was effective and other parts weren't. But that's something where, you know, we just have to wait and see where the relationship, how it further develops. So
I thought it was funny when he was getting on her about not being able to read the map, and she's like, "This is only my fucking second day in a car."
Dude, reading maps like that, thank God for iPhones, right?
Yeah.
I would have been so lost.
I mean,
we're here.
If he had Waze, they would have taken 80. They would have avoided this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Why are you going down to Kansas City, Joel? And at the end, we get introduced to Henry and Sam, and Henry's the one that they were looking for, right? That group throughout the episode.
Right, yeah. Kathleen says that Henry sold her brother out to Fedra,
yeah,
and Fedra executed her brother. So it's a personal vendetta.
Yeah, you see a lot of that, I think, in this world, like, even though it is all craziness with the clickers, with the infected, but it seems like a lot of the personal gripes are based off of revenge, whether it be with Fedra or somebody else within your community. But yeah, I think that was a scary shot at the end, especially with Ellie just screaming out for Joel and waking up with just a gun in your face. I guess his little glass trick didn't work, but...
Yeah, I know. Sam and Henry were tiptoeing. Like prime Fred Flintstone.
Hey, Sam, look. Glass trick.
Look at these fucking assholes.
You know what to do.
Yeah, that was interesting. And when they talked about giving a face to these rebels, when Joel was telling Ellie about their past, that he and Tommy teamed up with a group, that's where he met Tess. And she asks him, "Oh, you knew about that ambush because you used to do shit like that." And he's basically like, "Yeah, we did what we had to do to survive." And he emphasizes that, you know, we did that because we wanted to survive, but also I was looking out for family. And that's the most important thing in this world. That's what keeps you going. When Ellie says, "How the hell do you even continue with this world if you feel like there's no hope?" It's like, family keeps me going. That's why I'm trying to find Tommy. And it's the same thing with Kathleen, right? Her brother was killed. The responsible thing to do in this situation as a leader is deal with that problem that your second in command showed you. Something's growing under there. The fungus is cooking something up. And she goes, "Okay, we'll put that to the side for the moment. I want to go find Henry because he had my brother killed." So what's important, right? Saving this town that seems a little broken down anyway, or finding this person because he had your brother killed, right? From the outside looking in, it's easy for us to make that situation. But if we were in that situation where a brother or sister, whoever, maybe our judgment would be clouded too. So I think that's why when Joel says, "Oh, that used to be me," that's giving the Raiders a face right there. That's giving the rebels a face. Oh, Joel, at one point in his life, was doing shit like that, man, he's a complicated character. So now when he goes up against these people, we can see Joel in them. Oh, he's just killing off another person who's desperate to survive. To me, that establishes the humanity in just one quick line. Rather than, and that's the thing, if Kathleen was a better character and if the characters around her were more convincing, we haven't seen much of them yet, but even her second in command just looks like generic military guy.
He voiced Tommy, I think.
Yeah, he voiced Tommy in the game. What's his fucking name? Jeffrey Pierce. So it's cool that he got the opportunity to be in the game and now in the show. But I guess it looks like it could be a 2 to 3 episode type of arc here. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. But like I said, going back to what that experience was like playing it, the military, they were just so ruthless and so powerful that whenever you encountered them, it was worse than the zombies. It was like, oh, fuck, I'm low on gear. I don't have any bullets. These motherfuckers are gadded up.
Yeah.
And this isn't the military. This is the resistance group. But it's basically two sides of the same coin. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But not the strongest of starts for me.
Yeah, and I think the short runtime, even though it doesn't seem like much, 10, 15 minutes, if the goal of each episode is establishing themes and having them fully realized by the end, I think any minute you could spare really does help and build you towards that end resolve there. But yeah, like you said, we're going to see this group again next episode, and obviously from the preview, it kind of looks pretty insane. So yeah, it's not the best episode. I don't think it's bad by any means. It's just one of the weaker ones, and they were 9-episode season. One of them has to be the weakest, and I think so far this is gearing up to be that one, or I hope so, because you would hope they just continue back to that standard that we're shown they can do in the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, to me, what really hurts this episode is not having a great action sequence. I didn't need it to be all action, and I know that they want to take a more dramatic approach with some of the storytelling here because it is different medium. But I find it funny that they wanted to give these villains a face. They wanted to humanize them. But in the action sequence, we don't even know what that person looks like who was killed by Joel. I mean, we know the final guy. Mm-hmm. But to me, that really put us in the shoes of the Raiders. Show us their perspective of them trying to get some shots in at Joel. And just the action there. I mean, the director talked about it, that he was assisted by action choreographers in crafting those scenes. So you see that sometimes. The director isn't so good at visualizing action, so they bring in other people. And I think that it would have benefited from having a director that could visualize that action and could bring his own vision to it of how am I going to put the audience in the shoes of these characters having this back and forth. It just wasn't explosive enough. It sort of comes and goes, where the main thing is Ellie shooting the man, paralyzing him. And I think her performance there was great. The sort of shock of actually firing a gun and having to grapple with that so quickly. Bella Ramsey continues to kill it. But I'll keep going back to this. The way that it was framed, the way that it was shot, it just wasn't visually interesting or pleasing to watch. That really could have helped the episode, because then you know what Kathleen is capable of. Mm-hmm. That she's got her people, in lockstep, and they're brutal, and they're capable, and they're a threat. They don't feel like a threat. I'm not afraid. I'm not, there's no trepidation for what Joel and Ellie are going to encounter. It's more so whatever's cooking under the floor. But I think that you could have established both threats.
Yeah, I think obviously the intent was to show that, hey, it's just a kid. He's crying out for his mom. Not a bad guy. He's just in a bad situation. That's fine, but I don't know if it's necessarily needed.
It's not memorable.
Yeah.
I think it's not going to be a moment that we think back on and think, man, Joel, I know you were, back up against the wall. You had no choice. But that was brutal. That could have definitely helped the episode. Where you had a moment there to show us it's like in episode 2. They don't spend so much time with the clickers, but it was super effective. You're lost in those moments. You're thinking, man, this is it for these people. And I never had that. I never felt that way while watching this action sequence.
It's also a thing where you want to contrast the different obstacles for these characters. For instance, the infected, the clickers, more visually interesting in their actions, the way they operate. There's a mystery there, but at the end of the day, they are mindless zombies, right? And that's just a scary threat in its own right. And I get not wanting to have that same perspective when it comes to human characters. If they're just nameless, bad guys that are in your way that kind of blend together. But I also think in a way that kind of makes it even scarier, that kind of being able to compare humanity to this infected horde, because it just shows you how off the deep end some people can go, where zombie human, there's really no difference in the terms of what they're trying to do to you and trying to get you and trying to kill you. I think that kind of actually makes it a little bit scarier. And I feel like that's how some of the games were sometimes. You're playing and you're like, oh, you're worried about these zombies and everything, but the human element is just as scary, if not even more. Like, although I didn't really love those sequences, I don't think it was anything too bad. So it's not like I'm completely out or anything like that, or even out on these characters or this group. We'll see what happens next episode. But yeah, I agree with you. This episode just felt like a bit of a, especially after last week, such an emotionally exhausting episode in the best way possibly. Now we're getting back to Ellie and Joel, and it really just wasn't. It was a bit of a letdown.
Right, yeah. And once again, they're taking the approach of widening the scope of this world. And this is something to me that is welcomed, because I am interested in the politics and the Fireflies and this new resistance group. But now you're taking away some of that time from Joel and Ellie. And I wonder if the themes of this episode could have been hammered home harder if the focus was just on Joel and Ellie. And it's interesting, you bring up the comparisons between the zombies and the humans. With the zombies, there's a clear set of rules that you have to follow if you want a chance to win. And I guess with humanity, they're a bit more unpredictable, even though if they are deliberate in their actions, they can think on the fly. They're still human beings. They change their intentions on a whim. And to me, that could have been, instead of giving them the face, just do it through actions to establish this threat. But we'll have to see where it goes. The casting in this show has been so strong, and that's where I find Melanie Lynskey. I don't think she's a bad actress, but she was maybe miscast in this episode. That's how it felt.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the speech to me did nothing. Her interrogation of the doctor, it just wasn't very believable. And like I said, she's been in other things. She's been acclaimed in other projects, but maybe the casting there, they could have went a different route, which seems it seems like heavy criticism, but I have to be honest with how I felt.
No, yeah, it took me out of it a little too, as well, especially that one speech scene. I'm like, I don't know. That's, even though we just met this character, you'd assume that like the way the group responds to her and acts, it's a way of respect, and they'll follow her to the death, it seems. And that, I don't think that like any speech or anything she did in that episode really made me feel that way.
Right. It's not like when Anna Torv's Tess is being interrogated in that first scene. Right there, she establishes that she's a hardened leader, that people follow her, that she's important. There's a reason why Robert's got her tied up, that she's someone to be taken seriously because of what she's capable of. And I didn't get that whatsoever from Kathleen's character. Whereas, like I said, Anna Torv as Tess, Pedro Pascal as Joel, they fit their roles so well. And same thing with Bella Ramsey. But like you mentioned with the preview for next episode, it does seem a bit more intense. So possible bigger Jaws scenario where whatever's cooking up under those floorboards just comes out. Guess we got to all team up here. That's a big boy. It's a big motherfucker.
Even to look at him, like, I don't know if that's the one, but the one in the preview looks fucking brolic, dude.
Right, yeah, maybe that's just the warm-up.
Damn.
That's his opening act.
Oh, man, what is he cooking?
Yeah, and in the beginning of the episode, Joel gives us a little backstory into Tommy, saying that he was always a believer, or a joiner, I think is what he calls him. That when he was young, he joined the army and they shipped him off to Iraq, Desert Storm in the 90s. And then the same thing happened when the apocalypse broke out. He was eager to join the Fireflies because they gave him that hope that the world could be fixed, that the world could be saved. And you see this in real life too, the person who thinks that, everything's terrible, there's no fixing it. The best way to move forward is just to endure and to protect the things that are closest to you. But Tommy's the classic idealist. So it's interesting with Joel saying that he had to travel with Tommy to Boston because he wanted to protect his younger brother. He needed him there. But Tommy's the one with the military background, right? So Joel's got this idea in his head that he is the protector. And maybe it's Bill's letter going to his head a bit here. But you wonder if that's something where it's him projecting onto other people.
I think, of course, because we've seen Joel, in his mind, he probably views himself as a failure when it comes to protection. Couldn't protect his daughter, couldn't protect Tess. Now, obviously, the situations were not his fault at all, but the kind of guy he is, he probably feels some sense of responsibility for those circumstances. And I think that's what drives him even more so than, maybe in the first episode before what happened with Tess. Obviously, he still wants to be out there for his brother, but I think not only does Tess's death reinforce his own maybe projections of his own that he's a failure, but now it gives him even more of a reason to go find Tommy and feel like he needs to make things right. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit with Ellie. Like, not only protect her from raiders and clickers and infected, but protect her from the world itself and the horrors that she's going to be confronted with throughout their journey.
Yeah, even though he tells her she's cargo, the way that he was yelling at her to get behind the wall, that didn't feel like you were protecting her because of how important she is to your mission. That felt like you care about her and you just want her to be safe.
Well, even putting her back behind the wall so she doesn't have to see him finish the job. Like, that's very much, I don't want you to see this.
Yeah, instead of grabbing her by the shoulder and telling her it's okay, it's like, hey, I'm going to finish this. Go away. Turn around while I slit this guy's throat. To me, it just felt like so many of the themes they were trying to establish in episodes 1 through 3 hit me after the fact, where when I would sit back and contemplate the episode and think about it and think, yeah, that was really strong. I could see what they were going for. In episode 4, I was so aware of everything they were trying to do, and I think that's what took me out of it. It's like they went to the old character development handbook and they were like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it's going to be really effective, and people are going to see them having a more friendly and loving sort of relationship. But then there's these villains, and they're complex. Nothing's as black and white as it seems. There's always gray. I was just so aware of it. Nothing. Yeah. And maybe there's things that I am missing, and people are going to be like, well, look at this, pointing out some things that went over my head. But I feel like not much did. There's not much for me to think about and to contemplate and to,
No, usually at the end when they do the inside the episode thing, there's always something that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Or like, oh, I could see why they're going for that. This one, everything they revealed, I'm like, yeah, no, I got it. No shit.
Right, like one of my favorite moments from episode 3 is when she cuts the zombie, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, does she want to see if it feels pain?
Right.
And if it winces a little bit, maybe she won't kill it. But it doesn't, and she goes in for the brutal strike. There wasn't a moment like that in this episode. Maybe in the very beginning when she's fiddling with the gun.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, getting real specific, the Ellie stuff worked more than even the Ellie and Joel stuff, where I continue to be fascinated with her character development. But the Joel stuff and the Joel and Ellie stuff, you see it coming a mile away. And even as funny as the magazine scene was, it was perfectly adapted. It was basically word for word. I was wondering if they were going to keep that in. But they did, and I think it worked, the way that she was fucking with him, saying that the pages were stuck together. Mm-hmm. I think she delivered there, and his reactions were funny. But the other stuff was a bit superficial, a bit surface level for me. Like I said, just saw it coming from a mile away. And that's what this show has been good at so far. I've played the games, so I know where it's going.
Yeah.
But you sort of forget about that when you can get lost in it when it's done so well.
I mean, good thing they moved episode 5 to Friday, though.
Yeah, that's interesting, trying to avoid the Super Bowl there. So Friday at 9 p.m. for everyone who didn't catch that.
We just get right back to it.
Yeah, it's a shortened week. It's like when, your team plays on Sunday and then they got a Thursday night football game.
Yeah. It's going to
be real sluggish.
It's good, after
Joel's going to be missing shots.
No, that's what they say. Like, you lose a game and you just want to get back out there as quick as possible.
Burn the tape.
Yeah, burn the tape onto St. Louis.
Well, that's why you have to grade these shows on a scale of what came before it.
Sure, it's not it's just not a bad episode.
No.
But it's not as good as the other 3.
Right, yeah, I was a bit thrown off by that. I think they will return to form because the reviews for the entire season have been so positive. Most critics have seen all 9 episodes at this point.
Yeah, I'm not worried at all. And I think next week the preview just lends to entertainment no matter what. Like, it's really hard. It would be hard to fuck up what they kind of teased.
Oh boy, we've made those claims before. We've made those predictions.
I'll keep doing it.
How could they not nail it? Yeah, and it's not even a thing where I imagine people will say, oh, there were no zombies in this episode. The zombies, it's sort of like the White Walkers in Game of Thrones. You keep them in the shadows, and when they show up, they're even scarier. And I imagine they're going to have more occurrences throughout this first season than the White Walkers did in the earlier seasons of Thrones. But the big selling point that I would tell other people to get them into the game is, yeah, the zombies are scary, and their design really creepy, but it's the human element that's so fucking scary. It's because, once again, they're so unpredictable. They're still thinking, and a desperate human being is capable of anything. So sometimes it's just, like it's easier to establish that through actions. If we would have got that backstory from Joel, and then we see Raiders in the present day, and we see how ruthless they are, and then when they bring in Henry, and Henry's like, yeah, I'm on the run from these crazy psychos, and they encounter them again, it's like, yo, what the fuck did Henry do? Why are they on his ass like that? But we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm getting into the territory of what I would have wanted them to do instead of how they did it.
That's interesting. Like, comparing Joel to these Raiders, or Joel's past, and having them, maybe they wanted to show them as complex, and, you know, they can be right and wrong at the same time to better help you understand Joel as a person. But, like, if they were just straight up brutal and fucking militant, then you look at Joel like, yo, what did you do back in the day?
Yeah, right. When Ellie asks him, have you ever killed an innocent person, and he doesn't want to answer it, right there, you almost get a little scared of Joel. And it's not so much you think he's going to do something to Ellie, but what types of predicaments is he going to put them in because of what he's capable of? That he's willing to go to these lengths in order to survive. That he's willing to kill an innocent person. Obviously, he doesn't answer, but he basically does. Yeah. So I think just putting Joel's face on these Raiders would have been effective enough. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, yeah, that used to be Joel, and I wouldn't have wanted Joel to be killed, right? Because we love Joel. It's Pedro Pascal.
Oh, yeah.
But when push comes to shove, you got to make that decision. You either pull that trigger or the trigger gets pulled on you.
That foo-foo lame shit, I ain't with it. I sent some shots at your fitted.
Super nitpick, man. I know you said you liked it.
The puns?
No, the puns are fine. Yeah. Even though I thought it could have been integrated into the story more naturally. But Joel laughing at the end bothered me.
Really?
And that's such a neckbeard.
Yeah.
Like, Joel shouldn't be laughing. Joel shouldn't smile.
I think, like...
But he was cracking up, bro. He was like little girl laughing. I'm like, yo, okay, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, give me some air coming out of the nose laugh. That would have been fine. But that motherfucker was like sleepover laughing. Like, yo, mom's gonna hear us.
That's it. Sam and Henry. They didn't know they were there until they heard old Joel cracking up.
They're like, yo, kids having a sleepover in that room?
First time we heard the fucking Cat Williams stand up.
Yeah, bro.
No, it's every white kid listening to Dane Cook Kool-Aid Man bit for the first time.
He was laughing like when the teacher makes a corny joke and you just don't want him to feel bad. You don't want crickets. Just to boost his ego there.
Oh, man.
Ellie didn't need that. Ellie's a confident kid. Bro was giggling. He was snickering. Oh, boy.
No, I thought it was sweet.
The puns in the beginning, like when he's siphoning the gas and he doesn't know how to explain how it's actually being done. That was funny to me.
Also, another thing to your point of like not really feeling the fear of the other group, like him laughing like that after a fucking doozy of a day, just on their neck, on their heel all the time, just getting out of all these crazy situations, fearing for his life, and being able to sit back, relax, and that joke, even though it's not super funny, he's just laughing because like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? That would have been more effective. There was
right. Yeah.
Like there was
it
no
wasn't
sense
justified almost.
There was no sense of urgency for them to get to that wherever they are up the stairs, 33 floors. But if that was just like they're escaping death for hours on end, and they finally get him second to relax. She hits him with that, and he just has to let it all out in that way. I think that could have been even more effective.
Right, that would have been a funny moment of irony. Look at everything we've had to deal with, even though, like you said, the joke isn't that funny, but it's a moment to just exhale.
Yeah.
To have a moment of levity where you're just happy that you made it through the fucking day. That's an interesting point, definitely. Yeah, and I also found it interesting to see the state of Kansas City. How the hell did they manage to take down that QZ zone? That must have been pure chaos.
Yeah.
right? And it's something that we see the aftermath of it, and that's always very effective. Something happened here. And we're seeing the aftermath. We're seeing the remnants of this world.
No, that's one of the interesting things from the games, like just all the people you meet, all the places you go, just seeing the different civilizations that are able to arise in this climate, and the differences, some of the similarities, and how they try to best normalize their situation.
It's funny because this episode almost feels more like filler than episode 3 did. Where episode 3 did more for the themes of Joel and Ellie, where they're not barely in the episode. And this episode, focusing more on Joel and Ellie, it fell more flat. So I found that to be interesting.
Well, it's one thing I was thinking about, too. If they are just going to adapt season 1 from game 1, I mean, with 5 episodes left, there's still a lot to fucking do here to get to that ending. So
yeah, I wonder if maybe the ending will be a little different, but I don't anticipate it will.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's confirmed that it's just going to be season 1, game 1,
I think it
season
is.
2, game 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot to get to. I mean,
yeah. Well, I know episode 5 is going to be longer.
Yeah.
It's going to be an hour plus. And I imagine maybe episodes 8 and episode 9 could be similar to episode 3, where it gets to that hour and a half territory. But that's what, when I did see the runtime, I thought, man, this is going to be just a wild fucking ride. Mm-hmm. Straight from the games, more focus on the action. But it wasn't. Yeah. Like I said, it was slower than I anticipated, and that's something that you normally don't expect with a shorter runtime. So, yeah.
We'll see Friday.
Yeah, we'll
back
see.
This weekend, huh?
Yeah, look at that. We'll be back hopefully on Saturday. Get that review out. Review it on Friday night. A little change of pace here. They're not going up against the big game, you know?
Smart.
Yeah, because Patty Mahomes is throwing bullets on Sunday, not Joel. Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I do.
I'm a McGoat guy.
No, it makes sense, too. Like, they are in Kansas City. They probably just want to give the group a day off just to relax and watch the game.
Yeah, look at that. Right. Everybody kicking back. They're going to Bill's house. Bill's the only one with TV. Yeah, we're also not doing an outro today.
Wow, that was probably our best review yet. Hey guys, Aaron the Nerd Soup Monkey here with a brief shameless plug before we end the video. Do you ever feel like you don't have an adequate amount of nerd soup in your life? Like you're going to bed hungry and yearning for the nonsensical yet entertaining nutrients our podcasts provide? Well, we've come up with the perfect solution. The Nerd Soup Fan Question Podcasts, exclusively available to our Patreon supporters. You can sign up now by visiting patreon.com/nerdsoup, and for the price of only $1 per month, you'll receive exclusive access to our weekly podcast where we answer your questions that don't make it to the main show. And while you're there, you can check out the other rewards we offer to our patrons, like stickers, mugs, t-shirts, behind-the-scenes footage, and appearing in the credits at the end of our videos. And that's exactly what we're going to do right now. Roll the names of the nerds who make Nerd Soup possible. The reason why the crypto crash didn't send our lives spiraling down a black hole of no return. Alright, I'll stop talking so you can listen to this jazzy-ass music while checking if Beau spelt your name wrong in the credits.